Let's go back to when you first got interested in music.
All right, I was probably about 9 or 10, lived in New Jersey, and I was at my aunt's house, sitting on the floor for the first time watching Ed Sullivan show, and saw the Beatles on TV. And Ringo Starr was playing, and I said, turned around and told my mom, I said, Mom, that's what I want to do. And she goes, you know, of course the mom, I'm 9, 10 years old, yeah, okay, whatever. And I never forgot it, and ended up moving down here when I was 11 years old, got my first drum set, and from that point I never really looked back, just always played. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay, well tell me how your progression went. You started at 11.
Yeah, I started at 11, got down here, met some friends in junior high, or actually elementary school, and met a few people that played, and we started kind of jamming at their house and things like that, and then from there it was junior high school. Had a couple of bands in there, pretty much the same members, because we all went to school together, and I had a band. The first band was called the Bumblebees. The second band in junior high was the Inner Light. And then when I got to basically the end of my junior high to high school, I had the band Hotwire. And then Hotwire kind of broke up. It was an original band, original music, wrote a lot of stuff with the guitar player, whom is now passed. And then we kind of went our own way, and that's basically how it went down as far as my local, you know, getting into the music at a local level when I was in junior high school.
Okay. Did you play with any other bands before you met up with Molly Hatchet, or what they were called at the time?
Yeah, just the ones that I just said. Those were the bands that I played with. Actually, like I said, the last band was Hotwire. I was in high school, and they had a program called CDE, and it's where you went to school for a half a day and then you worked a half a day. And I told my teacher at the time, Miss Gray, says, okay, everybody's got to figure out what they want to do as far as a job. And so I wrote down on my thing, I want to play music. And she came up to me when she looked at my piece of paper and said, Fred, I can't get you that kind of job. You know, she says, I can probably get you something eventually in the music field, but you can't be a musician and go to school at the same time. I said, okay. So my first job was at the ranch house and washing dishes. And then she finally came up to me a month or two later and says, I've got you a job in the music field if you want it. I said, okay, what is it? And she says, working down at Morgan Case Music Center downtown. I said, cool, I'll take it. So ended up being in the shipping and receiving. And that's basically how I met Banner, was the first one that I met down there.
Banner Thomas.
Banner Thomas, yep.
And what, go on about your relationship with Banner.
Well, he used to come in there just about every day and used to sit down, pick a bass off the wall, come down there and play, and I used to sit there and watch him, because my job basically down there was, if I wasn't shipping and receiving on Saturdays and, you know, other times, if I didn't have nothing to do down there, I could come back out of the back and come to the counter and sell sticks and reeds and guitar strings and that kind of thing. And he used to come in there just about every day, and I finally struck up a conversation with him. I said, dude, don't you have a day job? And he goes, no, man, this is what I do. I want to play music. I play music. And I said, well, are you in a band now? He goes, no, matter of fact, me and a couple of my buddies were trying to get up a band. And I had just gotten a brand new kit. And I told him, I said, well, you know, I'm not in a band. I'd love to play. I got a place where we can rehearse if you want to try to do something. He said, sure. So the garage that we rehearsed in is only probably 200 feet this way down from my home, and it still stands today. All right, so this is the garage I was telling you about earlier where we first started,
rehearsing when I met Banner and Dave Hlubek and Dwayne. And we used to rehearse in there all the time. And then the gentleman that owned the house right here, he used to call the law on us almost every time we played, claiming his TV was rattling off his table. And so eventually we ended up moving out of here and moving to South Side and rehearsing somewhere else because we just couldn't keep tolerating the law getting called on us. But that's where it all started right there for me and the boys.
How did the boys handle it?
They were good about it, you know. You basically come over, we're going to give you the warning and this, that, and the other, and never really told us that we had to shut down. But you know, I think the curfew at that time was like 10 o'clock, and you know, we'd probably be rehearsing until 10:30, 11, and we just had to shut it down early. But it didn't matter what time we shut down or started. The man was going to call the law on us no matter what. I mean, when you guys are in your 20s and he's already in his 50s and 60s, you know, it's hard to change somebody's mind that you're trying to go somewhere with this, you know. And he wasn't having it.
So
That's a good memory to have.
so
Now
they
you
were-
own all this property.
Own it all now, yes.
Yeah,
They were already
that's how you
shaking
got him
houses
back.
back
You bought
then.
his house.
Right. Well, you know, hey,
Already
look,
shaking
anybody that's ever heard Hatchet when they played in a club or anything, they were loud.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was 10, they wanted it to go to 11. You know. Yeah, they did. It used to be different paneling on there, but the window in the back is still there, and they took the window out on this side. There was 2 windows there, and the front door was on the front side of it over there. And an old raggedy concrete floor, and we used to make music.
With some
Great
future
show.
rock stars.
And
Who were the other 2 people?
the other 2 people were Dave Hlubek and Dwayne Rowland.
The heart of Molly Hatchet.
Yes. They came over to the first rehearsal and we started playing. And my brother was actually living with me at the time, my older brother. And after we got done rehearsing, I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, dude, these guys are going to make it. I said, these guys are awesome. I mean, through high school you play with different people, but I never played with the caliber of musician that these guys were. I actually kind of in a way felt like I was the low guy on the totem pole because, I mean, these guys just blew me away. And we started rehearsing. Dwayne came in and he was probably gone from the band about maybe a month later. I don't know what the reasoning was that he left. But then they ended up bringing another guitar player in that a lot of people don't know about. His name was Kenny Niblick. He played with us for a from the time Dwayne left to the time that me and him both left the band at the same time, which was about a year and a half later.
What was the reason you left the band?
I left the band because I was 19 years old, straight out of high school, had just gotten married. My wife was pregnant with our first child. And when we tried to go out on the road and make money, it just wasn't there. And I had to take care of my family. And my family came first. I had basically a mother and father-in-law that really didn't support what I was doing. They thought I was wasting my time. And so I quit the band and got a daytime job.
What year was this?
I left the band about the middle of 1975.
Okay, so you were actually already going on the road,
Oh yeah,
touring a little bit.
yeah. We did some stuff in Cocoa
Small
Beach.
towns, right?
Yeah, we did some stuff Cocoa Beach, kind of like Daytona area. I don't know if the club is still there or not, but I believe the place that's down there now, which is and Dave could probably tell you better than I can because I just don't remember. But it seems like the Molly Browns that's down there now is one of the places that we played. I can't remember the name of the club in Cocoa Beach, but we, like I said, trying to get out on the road and only making $75 or $100, it just wasn't paying the bills. And so I ended up having to leave. And about a year and a half after that, they got their record deal.
How do you feel about that? You took care of your family and did the responsible thing, and then all of a sudden the band that you left because you were doing the responsible thing became, worldwide juggernaut basically.
Well, In a way, I kind of wish I was still out there doing it, you know, because that was my dream. I came that close to being there, and I just basically had to do what I had to do for my. I mean, you know, I don't kick myself in the butt for what I did. My family comes first, and if I basically tell everyone that I talk to about it, if I'd have been a single man, I'd have probably, or maybe without a child, because my wife at the time could have probably taken care of herself, you know, her mom and dad or whatever. I probably would have still been out there doing it.
Okay. So you don't have any regrets?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Did Bruce take over for you? Or
As far as I know, Bruce is the one who took my place. Yep.
Bruce Crump.
Yep.
Okay. So what did you do? You came home and you had your baby, and you got probably a steady job. Is that correct?
Yes, my father-in-law worked at a flour mill, and he got me a job over there, and I worked there for 27 years.
Oh.
Worked my way up from a sweeping floors to a maintenance department, and then they came and shut the place down. But that's what I did all that time. Now,
What about music?
music, I ended up getting in let's back up a little bit. After I did still work at the mill, but after Hatchet, I was with one more band that I created called Roman Hands. And they were probably back in that era of the 80s, was probably one of the biggest bands in town, along with the other bands, Eclipse and Toys and all those different bands. And had a couple of guys in the band from Knoxville, Tennessee that came down here, and I met them through...
This was all back in Jacksonville.
This was all back in Jacksonville, yeah. And then we also started doing the touring thing too. I mean, our first gig from Jacksonville was in Key West. And then from Key West, they threw us all the way up to Cincinnati, Ohio. And then we just did basically the East Coast. And we did that probably for about a year.
Well, that's impressive,
Yeah.
you know, for a band.
Did that for about a year.
So, what band was that?
Roman Hands.
Roman Hands.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, did you all ever come close to a record deal?
No, I mean, we sent out stuff to different record companies and stuff, but you know, you get the same old spiel, you know, not interested at this time and that kind of thing, you know. I mean, I even did that with the band Hotwire too, with all the original stuff that me and the guitar player wrote, but it's the same thing, and I just pretty much just kind of gave up on it, you know. And then after doing that touring for a little while up the East Coast, the band just was kind of coming to an end because there was a couple of younger guys in the band. I would kind of like call it babysitting. You know, when you're 17 and I'm 27, the responsibility of knowing that you got to go to bed at night and not stay up and party all night, that wasn't my thing. When I got done, I went home and I went to bed, you know, got back to the hotel room. These guys wanted to party till 5 o'clock in the morning. And it just took a toll on the band after a while. I just got tired of being a babysitter, and we finally broke up. Our last gig was in Atlanta. And I came home. That ended up in 1984, and I came home, sold my drum kit, sold every piece of equipment that I owned, and never touched another drumstick for 23 years. Up until then.
Well, why? I mean,
I was just frustrated. I just didn't want to deal with it no more. You know, I just said I'm done with music, and I just didn't want to be there in that place anymore. And to this day, now that I'm back in it, I regret doing that. I really do.
I regret quitting.
I regret quitting my music. Yeah, even keeping up playing.
What happened to bring you back into music?
That's funny. I was going to work one day because I work for myself, and I kept going up to this gas station right up the street from my house. And this guy named Robert Rogers got out of his truck with this, "Hey, Fred Bianco, I remember you with the Molly Hatchet, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, why don't you come over and jam with us one day?" I said, "Well, no, I don't play no more." And he says, "Oh, come on, you come over and jam." I said, "Nah, I don't want to do it. You know, appreciate it. Thank you very much." Well, this went on for about a month or so. And finally, I came home and told my wife, and I said, "You know, these guys that I met, they know me from back in the Hatchet day." I says, "They wanted me to come over and jam." And I told them, "I'm not going to do that no more." And she goes, well, why don't you just go over there and jam? And I said, because I just don't want to do it. I said, besides, I don't even have a drum kit. So I said, that's going to be my excuse to tell this guy I can't go over there and do it because I don't have a drum kit. Well, I met him up the next time, and I said, man, I can't do it. I don't even have a drum kit. He goes, oh, we've got one over here. And I said, oh. So I said, okay, all right, I'll come over
It
and
was
jam.
in the stars.
Yeah, I said, I'll come over here and jam. So I went over there and jammed, and, had fun doing it. They asked me to come over and invited me over again for one more time. And I jammed some more and came home and told my wife, I said, I got to get another drum kit.
See, it's re-sparked your fire.
That's re-sparked my fire. And matter of fact, the guitar player that's with us now in the band, Fratello, he is the guitar player that was actually over there the night that I jammed. Me and him got hooked up together and started a new group. We've been together since I think '08, about
08.
6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what? Okay, let's talk about. You've been an insider in the music business for quite a while. I don't know how close you were to Molly Hatchet after you left and they made it. I mean, did you continue to be friends with them?
I really wasn't close at all with those guys. If anybody knows Dave, back in the day, Dave had an attitude problem. I mean, if I go in there and shook his hand, it would be okay, yeah, whatever.
I knew him back then too.
Yeah. Banner, I went to go hear them when they first got their first album out. They were going to do the Civic Auditorium downtown. And
So this was after they had cut a record.
Yeah. I was gone for a while, and I wanted to just go down there and say hi, this kind of thing. And Banner was the friendliest one to me. He's the one who got me in to see their I guess what do you call it, their rehearsal. Before the concert, their sound check, right? But Dave really didn't talk to me that much. And I also met up with him one time before when they were playing with Big Engine. They were coming in to do just go in and set in with Big Engine down at a place down on Reed Street here called Anchor Cafe, which is no longer there. But I told my wife and my buddy, I said, why don't we just go up there and hang and see how they're doing, this kind of thing and all. And Dave walked in, and that's when they first started the no smoking. And Dave walked in, and we're watching him, and he lights up a cigarette. And my wife goes, oh my God, he just lit up a cigarette. And I said, uh-oh. And then he finally realized, oh my God, a cigarette, and he put it out, And he walked right past me and never recognized me or nothing. Banner was the first one to come up and talk to me.
How long ago was this?
Honey, do you remember? I can't.
It's probably 15 years.
15?
15 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And Banner walked up to me and said, hey Fred, how you doing? Shook my hand, gave me the hug, the whole 9 yards, introduced to my wife, my friend. Dave walked by me again, and then he says, Banner says, hey Dave, come here. And he goes, what? He says, you don't know who this guy is here? He looked at him and said, no, don't remember. He says, Fred Bianco, he's our drummer. Back when he first got out of high school and all that. "Oh, yeah, how you been, man? I thought you fell off the face of the earth." I said, "No, Dave, I've always been here." You know, so that's basically, you know,
That's
but now that I've gotten back into the music and Dave's a lot older, he's kind of changed his demeanor a little bit, and me and him get along fine now. I mean, we talk all the time. The
Good.
times I've seen Banner, we've talked all the time, you know. Never to get really a chance to know.
Yeah, Dave did have a reputation for surliness, I guess would be the nicest way to put it.
Right.
Back in the day, back in the '70s, and even when we used, I used to know him back then at the local bars. He definitely had a reputation for that, and I've got that from several other people. So are you happy where you are right now?
I am. The only regret that I have is that I stayed out of the music so long, because I mean, people like Steve Wheeler, even though, you know, the time that he had with Danny Joe Brown, and I mean, he's a great musician, probably one of the best guitar players in this town, but he stayed on top of it. Even though he may not have been with a band all the time, he kept up his chops. He stayed in the music scene, and people know Steve. I mean, if Steve went into a club right now and says, "Hey, I got a new band together," he'd be in like that. Because I did not keep up with all that. 23 years go by, I try to go into a club and do that, and who the hell are you? You know, nobody knows who I was, because I did not. That's the only thing I regret about the 23 years passing, is not keeping up with all the players and the musicians back then. You know, because I find it very hard and frustrating to get a gig in this town if people don't know who you are.
But do you feel like there's in the Jacksonville community, even going all the way back to the '80s, do you feel like there's in a way, a love-hate relationship between all the musicians?
I don't see it so much now. My motto is, if I go out and get a gig, like my wife and I are going to do today, if I go out and get a gig and I play somewhere and I see another band that's out there playing that I'm friends with, I want to go support them. You know, if we got the time and we're not playing, me and my wife are out supporting every other band that we can in this town. I don't care who it is. I said, but back then, it was all competition. We're all a lot older now. I don't have nothing to compete against somebody else for, and most bands shouldn't have that. We're just out there having fun, make a few dollars, enjoy ourselves, make people happy with our music, and meet other people, and just, you know, have a good time. That's about what I'm all about.
Okay. So, yeah, back then it was a lot of competition. Yeah, that's true. So now it's more of a support each other kind of thing.
Right. Matter of fact, my wife went to the port. This is how we are about it. My wife has designed shirts. It says support local bands on it. And every band that we have ever supported is on the back of that t-shirt. You know, and people, when they come up and say, "Oh wow, my name's on the back, I'd like to have one of those shirts." Sure, man, yeah. We sell them for $20. Most of the majority of the money goes back to paying ourselves back, because the money comes out of our pocket to buy the shirts. Once we pay ourselves back, whatever we make after that, we give to charity. Whether it be Dreams Come True, Mended Little Hearts, stuff to do with children is what I'm all about, you know.
That's great.
Go ahead and ask him about any, getting to know the guys that became Leonard Skynyrd.
Okay. Yeah, this is one thing okay. I understand you knew some of the members that made up Leonard Skynyrd. Was this before, or it couldn't have been before, or it could have been before?
Well, actually, with Skynyrd, I really didn't know any of those guys personally. I went to go hear them, you know, at the concert halls and stuff like that. First time, a lot of people didn't know it up until probably recently, because Ricky Medlock has put out a interview showing his kind of history with the band, Leonard Skynyrd.
Okay. Then Ricky Medlock, let's just make that clear, was the founder of Blackfoot.
Right. But he was also, a lot of people didn't know, he was the first drummer for Skynyrd.
I did not know that.
Yes. The first time I ever saw them play, I asked my brother, you know how your brother's older than you want to tag along and be like your brother, you know, and have a good time and just think you're big, you know. And I asked him, I said, you know, they were going to go, him and his buddy were going to go to a concert down at the old Jacksonville Coliseum. And I says, do you mind if I tag along? And they said, no, come on, you know, because he knew I love music.
You talking about Ricky Medlock?
Yeah, I'm talking
Oh,
about
your big
Skynyrd.
brother.
I'm talking about Skynyrd. Going down to they were playing at the Jacksonville
See.
Coliseum for a concert. You know, just a small concert. This was before they actually really got there.
Okay.
And we went to the concert, and back then you sat on the floor down at the Jacksonville Coliseum. There was no seating. You sat on the floor. And Ricky Medlock was playing the drums back then. And I said, man, that guy's great, you know, to myself. The whole band was great, but Ricky was behind the drums. And a lot of people didn't know that he was the drummer for them. And then, I don't know, I never knew actually why he didn't stick with the band. And I'm assuming because he really was a guitar player, but he could play the drums too, and he's a damn good drummer. And he wanted to, but if he wasn't going to play guitar, I guess he basically wanted to start his own thing. And like you said, that's pretty much when he left the band, then all of a sudden Blackfoot appeared, you know, and him playing guitar and singing.
Right.
And shoot, I didn't know he could play guitar back then. I just thought he was a drummer.
I never knew he drummed.
Yep. He's got an interview on YouTube where he says all about that stuff, where he was the drummer for them for a while. But personally, I didn't really know those guys that much.
They, believe it or not, Leonard Skynyrd played my 8th grade school dance at Bowles.
Is that right?
You know, that's how far back we go. But I was only in 8th grade, and then I think it was a year later that they were playing the World.
Yeah, yeah. Great band, great bunch of guys. I wish I had the opportunity to know them, but I just never. You know, I figured probably if I probably would have stayed with Hatchet, I probably would have had that opportunity. I probably, but you know, with leaving the band, nah, it didn't work.
There's a lot of talk about drug and alcohol abuse, and of course the groupies and everything. You seem to have left before all that came down, or did you?
Well, no, I mean, even back then, you know, people had groupies and stuff. I mean, I really, I mean, you know, back then it was mostly pot. I didn't really get into the coke scene or anything like that. That all came later, but, you know, and of course, the band, Roman Hands, we did a little bit of that stuff, you know.
Sure,
But
sure.
It wasn't my thing.
Okay, but when you get on the bigger stages, I'm sure it good. There's probably a lot of drinking too.
Now the drinking was there. Yes. I mean, I think that's always going to be there.
Right. So when you were on the road, there was a place you used to play.
Yeah, locally when we came back off the road with the band Roman Hands, we would, you know, not have any place to go on the road. We'd come back and play locally until we had someplace else to go. Then we'd go back out of town. But one of the places that we used to frequently play was Farrell's Elbow Room. And when we would go in there and play, and Hatchet wasn't on the road, Danny Joe used to frequent that place to come in and, you know, see the local talent. And we'd always get him up to sing 2 or 3 songs with us, you know, Give Me 3 Steps or something like that. It was never a Hatchet tune, it was always a Skynyrd. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, getting him up there too. That's kind of the closest I've ever gotten to Danny Joe, because I really didn't know Danny that well either. You know, he had not come into the band until after I had already left.
So he was perfectly willing to do that.
Oh, absolutely,
You
yeah.
enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, Dave was the lead singer for a long time before Danny Joe came into the picture.